everybody, and welcome to the Illegitimate Theatre Comedy Podcast. This week, we have a wonderful Canadian sketch troupe. They're called Hot Thespian Action. They started in 2006. We have all of the members here, which is fantastic. We have Shannon Guile, Jacqueline Lowen, Jane Tester, Garth McKelly, and Ryan Miller. I hope I'm saying all of those right.
Almost all of them.
The nature of the podcast itself is... we're talking to wonderful comedians, sketch troupes, and room runners from around the world. It's absolutely fantastic. Hot Thespian Action, thank you so much for being on the show here. It's great to have you guys talking. So, what is the sketch scene like in Canada?
In Canada, it's actually pretty good. Toronto is a big hub for the sketch scenes, all the scenes. Winnipeg, where we're from, is not a huge sketch city. There's only a couple other troupes here, but for sure in Canada there's quite a few of them. We've had the privilege of attending festivals with a lot of them, and I would say Toronto probably has like 60 on their own.
Yeah, Toronto is the big center. I mean, that's where that's the home of the Second City and Kids in the Hall, which both have pretty international following and reputation. But yeah, like Winnipeg is right isolated smack dab in the middle of the country. The closest big city to us is 8 hours away, and it's Minneapolis. So yeah, we're pretty isolated. So I mean, you know, Winnipeg, we've really had to sort of develop our own thing, our own style here in Winnipeg.
How did you guys sort of get started out? Because I know a few of you, initially Hot Thespian had 3 founding actions, which is Jacqueline, Jane, and Shannon. Your 3 founding members, how did you guys sort of get started out? Just you 3 before Garth and Ryan sort of came on?
Well, we all knew each other in university, at the University of Winnipeg. We were all taking theater. And basically, the girls we took formed a class called Advanced Mime and Improv. We were under the tutelage of a teacher named Rick Skeen, who's a stunt performer. He's a mime performer. He does a lot of physical theater. So we took that class, and it just became a sketch writing class.
Yeah, interestingly, Advanced Mime and Improv had no mime or improv in it. It's just sketch.
So that first year we had us 3 girls, and we just had sort of a placement boy for the few sketches that we had to have a guy in.
The token guy.
Yeah, a stock boy. And then we decided to, like, the Winnipeg Fringe Festival is one of the biggest fringes in Canada, so we decided to do a show, and that was kind of our incentive to write a bunch of stuff. And then we invited Garth, and actually it was Garth and another guy for the first year, another redhead, and then that redhead decided to go and have babies and stuff. We were like, get out!
Got the whole gamut of white people now.
Yeah.
It's good to see that you guys have a lot of diversity in the sketch troupe. What is your writing process for, I guess, more sort of musical, more physical sketches?
Well, I think the writing process for musical sketches and physical sketches and just plain old verbal sketches are all quite different, because in general we'll get together and throw down a bunch of ideas of things that have been annoying or things that might have like a grain of comedy in them, and then as a group we'll discuss, what's the best form that this idea could be presented in, and if that form happens to be a song, one person will generally take that and then write that song. Somebody will take the first pass at whatever the idea is, and then we'll bring all of the stuff back together and then work on it collectively to, you know, sort of shave down the rough edges, perhaps pass it off to someone else for better ideas and stuff like that. So really, I think the physical pieces are the only pieces that when we create them, we have to do it collectively pretty much most of the time to figure out how bodies fit together to tell the thing we want to tell.
And we all have different strengths too that we bring to the table. You know, like we all sort of have those strengths, but one person's strength will be, you know, a little bit stronger than others, you know. So it sort of needs to, like, part of our conveyor belt of comedy is you know, having to pass through each of us so that it has benefited from each of our strengths by the time it sees the
Yeah, really,
the
we're
stage.
all each 1/5 of a brain. None of us can function fully alone as a human.
It's good to see the conveyor belt of comedy kind of comes through, and you guys sort of chop it up and edit it and stuff like that. I mean, what has been your favorite sketch? I mean, just the past year that you guys have written collectively. What are you sort of excited to perform at Sketchfest, which is going to be next month?
Oh, we were just coming up with our set list for Sketchfest before we talked to you. This is so exciting.
We probably all have different favorites and for different reasons.
Okay, let's go around. Okay, guys, let's all go around and say which ones our favorites are. I'm going to start.
This is Jackie Lowen.
Jackie Lowen, I really prefer the physical comedy pieces, so I'm going to say that Love versus Lust is probably my favorite one that we're talking about doing right now.
Which is what?
Which is it's a physical piece in which there is no talking, but it tells the story of a lust demon and a love opposite of demon, and they angel. They are sort of, if not fighting, at least competing for the purity or lack of purity of the souls of two human beings that they are throwing together in a loving or lusting manner, depending on how the music goes.
One of our ones that we've come up with recently that we really like performing is one called Purgatory, which takes place inside a woman's purse. And we all play embodiments of neglected, left behind purse items.
It's an Alice in Wonderland style journey. A woman falls into the abyss of her own purse, and she's confronted with the ghosts of the garbage that live in there.
And what's weird about that sketch is that we started writing it long before we ever performed it. But as we were writing it,
as we do with some of our sketches,
yeah,
that we write before we perform.
well, yeah,
No,
but like long before. Some sketches we write after we perform. No, I just mean that I think it was like 2 years before it ever saw the light of day when we started writing it, and we stopped ourselves because we were like, this is too weird. This is weird. People will think we're crazy. And then eventually we just decided, who cares if everyone thinks we're crazy? Let's do it.
I've been a big fan of, we have a sketch called Good Time Girls.
Oh, I've already seen that. It's so much fun. It's so good. Sorry, go on.
There's this type of girl that you tend to see a lot at either at clubs or even just at concerts or just at a restaurant. They're out to get wasted that night. They're just so raucous about it. Like yes, we're gonna get wasted. Yeah, I got my bitches with me. And they use things like
derogatory terms
as terms of endearment. And it's you can see them everywhere. And I just got so sick of them. But then I also really love robots.
Somebody, I can't remember who, but somebody after a show was talking to me about the Good Time Girls sketch, some audience member, and I think it was someone of my mother's friends. And so she had said, well, I just love the commentary of that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, they're soulless, like robots.
Yeah. They're all the same.
And we were like, oh,
that's exactly
right. That's why we wrote it like that.
The funny thing is, my father had said the first time he saw him, he was like, yeah, it really spoke to me as, he came from Poland, and he said, as an alien myself. I was like, what? Wait, what? What do you get from this?
Yeah.
But he found his own meaning. It's the sweetest.
Yeah, people take what they want, especially because we write sketches that are often, like Jackie was describing with the love versus lust. They're often very simple and physical, and so because of that, people can sort of assign their own meaning to a lot of things and interpret whatever they want and get their own comedy out of it, which is fun. It's always interesting to hear from the audience what they got out of it, which is not always what we intended, but sometimes they get something better than what we intended, so it's great.
And I think that's one thing that we've discovered in the various festivals that we've attended. Our style of writing and of comedy is usually finding one truth, and a lot of the time sketch comedians will start by doing improv, which then becomes a bunch of little truths together. So we will take that one truth and spiral and expand and extrapolate it till it's bursting with stupidity, and they will take a bunch of those, which are just a bunch of comedy bits in one sketch. So having that one grain of truth, I think, allows people to put anything to identified in any way with themselves.
Yeah, it brings, and I think also because initially, though, it started, I know Australian sketch troupes are probably rolling in money, but here in Canada, unfortunately, it's one of the more underfunded aspects of our artistic, to not have costumes or sets or props was going to be a nice money saver, but then it ended up becoming our style because really it becomes a significantly more blank slate that the audience is able to
using
expose.
your imagination.
Yeah, and the audience enjoys using their imagination, and sometimes the jokes of the scenes are dependent on that. Like, without spoiling Good Time Girls, that's one of the main reasons we haven't filmed it, because one of the biggest punchlines in the scene is finding out their location at the end, and realizing it's not the location you imagine them in. And that only works if it's in mime. If we actually filmed it in that location, then you would see the punchline from the beginning, So that's sort of just a happy accident that comes along from us just not using props or sets or costumes.
With Sketchfest coming up, what's been the hardest thing about preparing for that? Because I imagine not only you guys have to get to Chicago, but you guys have to prepare for everything. You have to put in forms, you have to put in so much. Like, what's been sort of difficult for you guys?
Getting across the border.
Yeah. You don't want us there. We are currently struggling. It'll be fine. We'll make it.
It's just there's a lot of red tape. I mean, Canada and the U.S. have probably the best border relations of any two countries in terms of having a very porous border. But with that said, they still want to make sure that we're not coming in and taking American jobs. So we just are right now up to our ears in paperwork, trying to make sure that they don't stop us at the border.
We're trying to prove that we're making $0.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been our biggest feat. Like, we've talked to far too many people, like lawyers and our unions and stuff like that. So I think the hardest thing is the fact that it was Christmas. So everyone's like, yeah, we'll talk about this later. So
yeah. But with that said, in terms of the actual comedy part of it, I think we do take into consideration a little bit when we travel south or actually when we travel anywhere, even if we travel from Winnipeg to Toronto. We often say this little reference here that we're making, do they have that here? Will they get that? So that crosses our mind when we go to the U.S. Most, that's pretty rare because Canada and the U.S. are really carbon copies. Like, there are very few differences. We'll try to make we'll
cut out all of our maple syrup jokes.
Yes, and all of our lumberjack log running jokes.
Yeah.
All of our Celsius.
And we're gonna stop talking like this.
Oh, yeah.
All our Canadian accents, eh?
I love it when we say sorry.
Oh, sorry,
We're
Canadian.
gonna go up on the roof.
One of my friends recently returned from Canada, and he was like, "It's like Canada's a 3D printed version of the US. Like, it's the same kind of instructions. It just looks like it's been made just a little bit better, and it's fairly white." Canada has a fantastic tradition of comedy sketch troupes, as you mentioned before, Kids in the Hall, and you guys produce some of the best comedy that has definitely broke through in terms of digital distribution in the past few years. What influenced you guys growing up? Like, was it more Canadian stuff, or was it just more American stuff in general? Going around the room.
Yeah.
Start with Ryan. You didn't get to talk about your favorite sketches.
My personal influences would have been like the Golden Girls. I am probably the male form of B. Arthur.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
But in terms of sketch, I mean, I never really saw myself becoming a sketch artist. After joining the sketch troupe, I sort of had to figure out what sketch really was. So I turned to, as a kid, I watched a lot of Monty Python. Monty Python sort of a little more silly, sort of like my sort of sense of humor, I think. Kids in the Hall was kind of off the wall kind of stuff, like out of left field kind of stuff that I guess I never really responded to that as much. So yeah, I guess it's more so the Monty Python style that I was influenced by, sketch-wise.
This is Shannon talking now. I think a lot of it for me, my introduction into sketch comedy was SNL. I wasn't big into Kids in the Hall. I'm kind of in the same boat as Ryan in the style of comedy that it is. I know it's funny, it's just not my style. And yeah, I think I like a lot of more like pushing the envelope kind of comedies, and maybe it's because I grew up watching stuff like Roseanne and stuff like that when I was a kid. My mom would watch that stuff, so I'd sit and watch it with her. And actually, back in the day, SNL was a little more edgy. Like back in the days of like, not that I'm from the 70s, but we watched a lot of the reruns when I was growing up. And the 70s and 80s were a little bit more edgy.
Controversial.
Yeah, they were more controversial, and I liked that. So I think that influenced my comedy.
The whole idea of sketch comedy, again, is something that I don't think, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'll speak for everyone when I say none of us really thought we want to be a sketch comedy group.
Mm-hmm.
But what we all did sort of become was a sketch comedy group. And I think that all of us, though, through I guess, an education through a theater school, really what we ended up creating, and not at all to sound pretentious, but in the way that we conceptualize it, is we just do like little 3 to 5 minute plays. So they have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they're a concise story in and of themselves about one thing, and they just get to be 3 to 5 minute funny plays. So
I think that is how we all conceive of what we do. Like, I mean, our name is obviously a play on words, but it's true. I mean, we think of ourselves more as thespians, as actors, than we do think of ourselves as sketch comedians. And when we've traveled to other sketch comedy festivals, we really see like what a totally different breed of animal we are. Like everyone else has a way of doing things that just is not how we do it, and everyone has differences within that. But we go and we just see like, oh wow, that's not how we approach a sketch, So yeah, I do think we're sort of more so actors and like theater. We do like experimental theater that happens to be funny and short.
That is the one good thing about, well, not the one good thing, but one of the good things about being from Winnipeg is. And the fact that we are from this tiny little comedy community, and we're so separated from the big ones like Vancouver and Toronto, is we've been able to just develop our own brand without, like, obviously, yeah, I mean, I watched SNL a lot. I watched In Living Color and did not understand any of the racial humor. But I loved that stuff. And yeah, we watched Monty Python and that kind of thing. But just then when we came together as a group, you're kind of informed by that, but we were never trying to copy anyone, and we didn't have anyone to even
try to emulate.
Yeah, like they weren't even putting their fingerprint on us, because we're literally the only functional sketch troupe in the city.
It's kind of like one of those weird animals that evolves on a Galapagos island or something like that.
In Madagascar.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can function outside of our home environment, but I hope so.
This will be a test.
Actually, kind of speaking of which, how did the IndieGoGo campaign for the pilot that you made a few years ago, how did that sort of come about?
Wow, that's been an ongoing saga over many, many years. I think we started that IndieGoGo campaign in 2011. Basically, when we started raising money for the IndieGoGo campaign, it was to film our own pilot of a sketch comedy show. And so we already had, a bunch of sketches written, and we just wanted to film them and, make a 22-minute episode sort of thing. But then halfway through raising money for that, we learned that none of the Canadian broadcasters were at all interested in sketch comedy shows. Even though it's so funny because, I mean, the Canadian TV is built on sketch comedy. Like we've had, as we mentioned earlier, like SCTV and Kids in the Hall. And then also, there's like some of the longest running shows on Canadian television, Canadian Air Farce, and
22 minutes.
This Hour Has 22 Minutes are sketch comedy shows. And yet everyone was saying, don't do sketch comedy. It's dead in the water.
We did originally, though, it was going to be sketch comedy, but it was us doing sketch comedy. Like, it was a sitcom of people doing sketch comedy.
Well, not originally. It was supposed to just be sketch at first. Then we were like, okay, no, wait, they want sitcoms. That's what we have to do. So then we started developing a sitcom, which was a whole other ball of wax. Yada, yada, yada. Time passed, and eventually we pitched this sitcom that we've written now to broadcasters, Canadian broadcasters, and we're just sort of in a holding pattern with them. It's just sort of a matter of basically we just need to get ourselves out there as much as possible, and that will help put some fire under.
It was pretty much a situation of We like it, we love it. No, go and get your face out there.
Get famous first and then come back.
And then come back and then we'll produce it.
But I think that's such an incredible original idea, because the usual, I guess, sort of format for sitcoms is you have a comedian, they get famous, they get their own show, and then it's about being a comedy. That's Mulaney, that's Louis, that's Ellen, that's Seinfeld. But an actual sitcom about a sketch troupe, that there's a lot to go with that. I mean, I can imagine it. I guess because I've been watching it a lot lately, it's more of like a HBO drama where you guys are just like you're all cutthroat with each other, and you guys are going to like take sides, and then the finale of the season is one of you gets sort of swayed away by another sketch group who are about to like hit the big time, and Shannon, who's got a history with stunt work and for being in Home Alone 5, and she's just like, I can go with these guys, I can do this. And you guys are like, no, Shannon, don't leave. And then you leave it at a cliffhanger, and then HBO picks up for a second season. Was Shannon actually in Home Alone 5?
Yes, I was.
How does that happen? Because you've been doing sketch for 5 years, and then I think you started, according to your IMDb page, started doing stunt work. Are you terrified? I feel like I would constantly be worried if I was a stunt person, but I feel like being a stunt person, you're just not terrified. Am I wrong about that?
Well, actually, more than half of us are stunt performers too.
What?
It's funny. We were talking in university that class that started this troupe was taught by this guy named Rick Skeen, who is a stunt coordinator in Winnipeg. And so basically, whenever they film a movie in Winnipeg, which is often a horror movie.
It's always the fourth plus of any franchise.
Yeah, Home Alone 5 and up. Yeah, which usually they need to have a bunch of stunts in. So Beethoven's Christmas Adventure. Yes, literally. We're pretty much all in that. So Rick just looks to his students and fills.
Well, it's not even that.
And there are only 5 people in Winnipeg.
Yeah, he just, I guess, ends up training up his friends, like people that he made good friends with, and then he trusts. So, we just happened to be those people, but also because we took all of his classes, and we had the same interests. And
we're obviously physical people to begin with.
Yeah, it all kind of combines.
Guys, remember, money trumps fear. Money always trumps fear, guys. I'm really sorry that we have to wrap it up here. You guys have been absolutely incredible. Thank you for all 5 of you being here.
Oh, thank you.
I think next time we should do this interview in person, and perhaps if we were going to flip a coin and pick the continent.
I guess we'll come to you.
We'll come to you.
Yes. Can we contact the Melbourne Arts Council for their funding?
If you like what you've heard here, check out hotthespianaction.com. Check it out on Facebook. Type in Hot Thespian Action. And obviously on YouTube, please watch the Good Time Girl sketch. It is fucking hilarious, and I'm really sorry to my producer Ash, but I'm not allowed to swear on this podcast. I'm sure it can it out. Hot Thespian Action, thank you so much, good luck, and thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you. Wonderful. We like your mustache.
Yeah.
Ash, can we cut it there? What's the protocol? I don't know how to end things.